In the not-so-distant future, due to climate problems, sea level rise, and resource depletion, humanity decides to migrate to space out of necessity for survival. Successful shelters that are habitable for humans are built between the Earth-Moon orbits. However, not long after some of the shelters arbitrarily declared independence and established the autonomous nation of Adrian, they started indiscriminate attacks against Earth and other shelters. Consequently, a war has erupted between the Earth's united forces and Adrian, which has been going on for 40 years. Among this, a mercenary known as Jung-E emerges as a revered legend during the Civil War. She has participated in countless major and minor wars, having the ability to wipe out an entire squad of mecha soldiers single-handedly. And Adrian's greatest weapon is the Decepticon in front of. It can break through heavy barriers at incredible speed with its glider, and its strong hide can easily withstand the damage from rocket launchers. It is equipped with an 8-hole high-tech fire extinguisher on its back, enabling it to rebound from fire in no time. Its head is fitted with high-definition thermal imaging, making it impossible for enemies to hide. When Jung-E, who was hiding on top, was looking for a chance to catch his breath, the Decepticons suddenly turned their guns to fire wildly overhead. Jung-E quickly shifted with the help of the ropes and escaped to the other side after crashing through the glass, while the Decepticon were crushed in place by a few steel pillars that had fallen from the top of their heads. This is a golden opportunity for Jung-E, but she hesitates when taking aim at the Decepticon tiger, and instead gets taken down by the arriving mecha soldiers. Jung-E once again found herself encircled by enemy troops. She forcefully endures the pain and inspects her wounded left hand, only to discover that her fingers are made of machinery. But when Jung-E is taken aback by this, her eyes suddenly become vacant, and her entire body gravely stays still in place. The mecha soldiers around her cease their attacks. Her surroundings start to transform. The brutal battleground transmorphs into a spherical warehouse. The door opens and in walks 3 researchers who come up behind Jung-E and connect a data cable to the back of her neck. Once the data transmission is finished, Jung-E stands up to follow the researchers out of the warehouse, entering into a long passageway. Below the passageway is a massive machine manufacturing factory. Robot heads are lined up waiting for tests, and Jung-E is brought into an elevator. As the elevator rises, her mechanical arms begin to strip her of her armor, ultimately leaving her with only a bare half torso. Although Jung-E is indeed a legendary mercenary and has overcome many difficulties along the way, for some reason she always fails at the last moment. So this version of Jung-E also faces the fate of being destroyed. How did Jung-E become a robot? It turns out that 35 years ago, Jung-E participated in a secret mission to destroy the shelter in Adrian, but the operation failed and she became a vegetable. In order to carry forward Jung-E's unique mercenary spirit, the United Army, with her family's consent, spared no cost to clone her brain and convert it into data. They will develop the best battlefield commander AI, possessing all her tactics and combat skills, and even her strong loyalty and will. The research project is called Jung-E, and Jung-E's daughter Seo-hyun is in charge of it. One day, top leadership came to inspect, and Seo-hyun explained the working principle of AI to them, but the leaders were only interested in the test results of the clones. When they learned that Jung-E had not succeeded in escaping so far, they began to mock and ridicule Jung-E's past. They thought that cloning a failed soldier's brain could not possibly create a successful weapon to win a war, and even blamed the continuous Adrian civil war on Jung-E. After hearing this, Seo-hyun swore to make her mother's clone pass the escape test and become a permanent hero of the United Army. Unfortunately, reality is not so optimistic. At present, the clone has been numbered up to Jung-E 17. Seo-hyun must conduct a face-to-face interview with her before Jung-E 17 is discarded. The assistant connects a tablet to the controller and presses the live activation key on the tablet. At this time, Jung-E can feel the pain of her body's deficiency. The daughter can't bear to see this, operates the tablet to reduce the pain index of Jung-E's brain to a minimum. Without the pain, Jung-E starts to go crazy because of the deficiency of the body. The anger index of her brain shoots up. She is not in a state to communicate in this state, and Seo-hyun can only shut down Jung-E 17 and dispose of her. Then a folding mechanical arm took away the brain from the clone's skull. The assistant is a die-hard fan of Jung-E and thinks it's a pity to just throw it away. And when he was a child, Captain Jung-E was even more popular than comic book heroes. Seo-hyun told him that her mother often went to war because of her. Because there was a tumor in her lung when she was young, her mother had to keep going to war to earn enough money to pay for the high cost of surgery. so Seo Hyun always felt that her mother died because of her. She's on a bus to the hospital, watching a mother and daughter depending on each other not far away, and remembered the last time she saw her mother when her mother received the mission and was going to the battlefield and she could not accompany her daughter during the surgery. She comforted her daughter that she would be back after the surgery and told her to be strong, but it was too late to see each other again. After seeing the doctor, Seo Hyun learned that the cancer cells in the lungs had spread to all surrounding organs, and the situation was now impossible to operate on. With a life expectancy of 3 months at most, the doctor suggested immediate brain cloning and transfer to a prosthesis, and Seo Hyun was all too familiar with this operation. Cloning surgery is divided into 3 tiers. Tier A has an independent personality, can have legally valid marriages and other basic rights of humans, but the costs are extremely high. Tier B does not have an independent personality and needs to provide brain cloning data to government institutions, and Tier C does not get human treatment at all, needs to authorize brain data to various institutions, and then create countless similar clones to provide various services. Tier C costs almost nothing, and instead provides support fees to the families of the deceased. Seo Hyun knew this all too well, because her mother was desperate and signed a Tier C contract, being used as a war weapon. She was also very open about her diagnosis, and after hearing the doctor's explanation, she didn't make a decision and left. Through statistics of the combat data of Clone No. 17, a new and upgraded brain is put into the skull of Clone No. 18. For the new round of escape tests, the director of the research institute, Jung-E, broke the routine and let the robot attack Jung-E's legs in advance. As the test begins, the Jung-E live body is activated, and because of the leg injury, the pain data in the brain shoots up rapidly. Although Jung-E defeated several soldiers with her strong will, she was completely suppressed by the robot in the singles combat. The willpower area of Jung-E in the computer was marked in green. When the battle ended in failure, Jung-E's willpower began to decline. The pain represented by red began to soar, and the escape test failed as expected again. Just then, a new part of Jung-E's brain was suddenly activated, and Jung-E immediately ordered the researchers to mark it as yellow, and this unexpectedly activated new area could be the key to the success of the escape test. But in the following various tests, they used all sorts of extreme methods but could not find this yellow area again, and they received orders from the headquarters that if Jung-E failed to escape in the new round of tests, she would be downgraded for home use. By then, Jung-E is likely to become a tool, a result that the group leader cannot accept in any case, so she orders her subordinates to send all the data of the artificial intelligence project to her. After careful research, when Jung-E learned that she was going to die, the yellow area would be activated. What it actually represents is the concern for her daughter. Jung-E's memory is still stuck 35 years ago, and she is afraid that she will not be able to fulfill her promise to her daughter, and cannot appear when her daughter's surgery is over. Seo Hyun hurriedly told Jung-E that the surgery was very successful, and Jung-E was very relieved when she heard this. Before the surgery, the daughter gave Jung-E a doll. A little doll as cute as she was. The daughter told the mother to be strong. The little doll can protect the mother. She even made a wish. Jung-E happily put away the doll, but she accidentally lost it during the fight. She has always been regretful, until the moment she aimed at Optimus Prime. The little doll hanging in the car aroused her concern again, which is also the reason why Jung-E hesitated at that time. Seo Hyun turned off Jung-E's system. She had already been crying as she listened to her mother's words. Sobbing, it turned out that she was her mother's everything, but she did not tell her mother that the daughter had grown up, let alone let her mother know that she only had 3 months to live. Looking at Jung-E who was standing there, she had a very bold idea in her heart. Soon, the new Jung-E clone body was made. Seo Hyun waited in the circular warehouse. She would personally carry out the data transfer of the last test. It was not until the others left that Seo Hyun plugged the data line into Jung-E's back neck. Looking at the brain data on the tablet, she put her finger on the yellow area and wanted to delete all her mother's concerns about her. Standing behind her mother and looking at her, Seo Hyun's heart was mixed with feelings. She took another look at the progress bar and couldn't help but release her hand, letting her mother's concern for her daughter drop to a 1 on the scale. Then she began to speak in Jung-E's ear, as if Jung-E was hearing a dream talk. but it was not a dream. Seo Hyun told her all about how her mother became a vegetable and then was cloned. Once the docking was completed, the final round of testing began formally. Ujingkya sat there bored, thinking that the result of the escape would definitely be the same. In the previous stages, Jung-E was as agile as always, and she easily took down the opposition with her flexible movement. Then came the final battle with Optimus Prime. Optimus Prime was trapped with help from above, and Jung-E quickly aimed her weapons, but she was hit by reinforcements. Ujingkya declared the test over, and everyone dispersed on the spot. See if we're meant to. With that, he left the control center, and 2 researchers started cleaning up. Strangely enough, as soon as Jung-E's brain data was transmitted, she automatically stood up. The 2 men were a bit surprised, but they still followed Jung-E, and Ujingkya, who had just left, suddenly noticed something odd. He hurried back to the control center, and had the assistant replay the footage of her being shot. He slowed the speed and watched it again. Ujingkya found that the bullet did not hit Captain Jung-E, but she fell to the ground. Ujingkya ordered the assistant to sound the alarm, notifying all personnel to go to the emergency shelter. The 2 researchers were a bit stunned when they saw the alarm. Suddenly Jung-E quickly turned around and knocked the 2 out, taking one of them's access card. At the same time, the assistant activated 3 combat robots in the lab after a few operations. Ujingkya took his weapon and set out to find Jung-E, while Seo Hyun went to the interview room and deleted all the original data about Jung-E in the computer. She wanted to have Captain Jung-E completely escape this place. Jung-E, facing this strange world, got lost, and walked into a production warehouse full of clones. 3 robots followed closely behind and attacked Jung-E. Jung-E was not weak at all. After all, she was once a legendary mercenary. She kicked a soldier down and pulled out the power cord from his neck. But the battle with the other 2 robots lasted a long time, and she couldn't resist and had one of her arms removed. At the critical moment, Jung-E used a nearby laser to aim at the robot's head, pushed it away and followed up with a deadly kick. She began to feel pain increasing rapidly. She was gradually losing ground in the ensuing battle, being choked and lifted high by a robot. Fortunately, Seo Hyun appeared just in time and shut down the robot's system with a data cable. She held Jung-E's face and told her she was the person who talked in her dream. She would help her escape from the institute. On the other side, a high-speed train is coming fast, with several robotic soldiers heading straight to the institute. They arrived outside the warehouse where Jung-E was located and were fully on guard. They entered the warehouse after inputting the access code. They didn't expect the mission to be so smooth. Jung-E came out from one side and handed herself over to be hit by the mechanical soldiers. They reported to the headquarters that a human had been injured on the scene and a robot helped Seo Hyun out of the warehouse. Mechanical soldiers came close to check Jung-E's injuries and found that her head was empty. The soldier captain turned to look at the surveillance probe on the roof. Through monitoring, they discovered that Seo Hyun had transferred Jung-E's brain data to another robot's head and successfully escaped from the institute. By the time the soldiers discovered this, Jung-E and Seo Hyun had already boarded the escape train, but Ujingkya was waiting for them in the train. He scolded Seo Hyun for her betrayal and threatened Jung-E that he would kill her daughter if she moved. Seo Hyun rushed to say she had already wiped all of Jung-E's memories of her daughter. Jung-E is now a completely free and independent individual. After hearing this, Ujingkya shot Seo Hyun in the shoulder. Jung-E reacted quickly and grabbed the gun to shoot at his face. Unexpectedly, Ujingkya, who was shot in the head, got up. Turns out he was also a clone. Knowing the truth, Ujingkya activated his hidden second personality. His movements became unbelievably agile. Ujingkya ruined the controller and the out-of-control train begins to speed into the city center. Ujingkya took the opportunity to lift Jung-E and threw her out of the window. Luckily, Jung-E grabbed Ujingkya's arm, but after a few heavy blows from Ujingkya, Jung-E, who was in great pain, fell down. Just when Akin thought it was over, she kicked through the glass and struck Akin directly on the neck. At that moment, the train came under gunfire, and Jung-E quickly found a corner to hide. It turned out that the mechanical soldiers, riding on a high-speed train, had caught up with her. The soldiers were attacking the train. Fortunately, the train was heading towards the city center. The mechanical soldiers detected human presence in the city, so they put away their weapons. With a burst of jet engines, all the soldiers took off and flew using inertia. Then, using their grappling hooks, they latched onto their opponents and transferred into the train, with nowhere to escape. Jung-E could only charge out and face the mechanical soldiers head-on. taking on several of them single-handedly. Seo Hyun saw the situation deteriorating and lunged at one of the soldiers, but was thrown aside. However, Seo Hyun managed to activate Jung-E's yellow zone. Jung-E pulled out the hook and frenziedly beat the soldier, then threw the hook at Akin. In a flash, she charged at him and kicked Akin out of the train. Akin grabbed onto a mechanical soldier with a rope. After flying for a moment, they used the rope to successfully return to the second level of the train. While Jung-E wasn't paying attention, Akin suddenly broke through and grabbed Jung-E, pinning her to the ground. At this time, the runaway train was like a speeding iron dragon, blazing through the city center. After hitting a container, the two-level train began to separate, leaving the city center and heading towards the outskirts. Seo Hyun climbed out the window to watch them. Suddenly, a beam of light shown as an oncoming train was racing towards them. After being hit by the oncoming train, the entire train was teetering. Akin picked up a weapon beside him and continued firing at Jung-E, who was about to fall off the train. Seo Hyun also picked up a hook launcher and fired it in front of Jung-E. Jung-E crawled forward a few steps and used the rope to fly to the upper-level train. As for Akin, who was shooting madly below, he wasn't as fortunate. After the train separated, he fell down with it. The falling train collided with a mountain and exploded. Jung-E grabbed onto the train with one hand and, with Seo Hyun's help, successfully climbed up. At this point, the train lost power and stopped in the outskirts, and in the distance, the sound of pursuing sirens could still be heard. With tears in her eyes, Seo Hyun urged Jung-E to leave quickly, assuring her that she would be fine. Jung-E reluctantly embraced Seo Hyun, just like a mother holding her daughter. With this embrace, Seo Hyun felt completely satisfied. Next, it was time for Jung-E to leave. She jumped off the train and sped through the forest. Although she didn't know where the road ahead would lead, there was hope as long as she was alive. Seo Hyun also blessed Jung-E, hoping that all the world's good fortune would accompany her. Jung-E climbed a high mountain, looking into the distance, surveying this familiar yet unfamiliar world.